today's top boxing news.
Anthony Joshua, 24 hours to accept the fight. Is it going to happen, or are these both teams bluffing each other?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen because while Fury would want it to happen, I put myself in the shoes of Eddie Hearn and Joshua, and after losing twice to Usyk, the first thing you want to do is to get him back in the ring and get him 2 fights where it restores his confidence. If he goes back in the ring now with Fury, it is going to be a massacre.
Do you think the 60-40 split is fair?
What?
Do you think the 60-40 split is fair? Fury getting 60, 80, 80-40?
Well, I think that is pretty fair, right? I mean, Joshua was not a champion anymore.
Well, then he said that if Joshua was to win the fight, it would be 60-40 in his favour in the rematch. Do you go along with that?
Hey, if Fury would want, if Fury is willing to do that in a whole thing, then sure I'll go along with it. But again, let's not jump. I don't believe that Fury against Joshua will happen this year, because everything that I know about boxing from Joshua's standpoint indicates that it won't happen.
Who have you got for Fury if it's not Joshua?
There are a number of fighters in Europe that we're talking to. Fury is definitely going to fight this year. They're definitely going to fight in the UK, because I talked again yesterday with Usyk's manager, Egis Klimas, who said, please don't rush us. We'll do the fight the first quarter of next year with Fury against Usyk. And Fury, meanwhile, wants to stay busy. So if this Joshua fight doesn't come to fruition, which I believe it won't, then Frank and George, Queensberry, and our people will find a suitable opponent to have Fury fight in the UK.
One of the more interesting bits of information that has since come out since Bob Arum himself chimed in on the Fury versus Joshua fight, potential fight that he doesn't expect to happen, is that Fury is contractually committed to fight twice more on top-ranked shows that must take place in the United States, and until he does so, they are co-promoters of all of Fury's fights. It's an interesting tidbit because, last I checked, Fury's not allowed into the country. So when exactly will that ban be lifted so he can so fulfill his top-ranked contract?
I imagine somebody's got to be working on that.
I don't know, they might be. How much urgency is there really to bring Tyson Fury back to the United States when he has no high-profile dance partners here in America to share the ring with him?
Yeah, you can try to bring him back to the States, but to fight who? Bring him back to the States for what?
The only fights left for Tyson Fury of any considerable value would be an Usyk fight, Alexander Usyk, who's taking the rest of the year off, and an Anthony Joshua fight. And Tyson Fury, in his own words, he says he doesn't have anything and he's coming off 2 losses, but I see the value in Joshua, even though he's lost to Alexander Usyk. I still think me and AJ in England is bigger than me and Usyk.
That's what he thinks. Those are his own words.
The problem is the cutoff point has been reached. They put a 24-hour deadline, Anthony Joshua, to accept Tyson Fury's offer, and that deadline is all but up.
Bob Arum didn't expect Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury to fight this year.
And neither did Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, who stated, I don't want to get people too excited because I have my doubts. But AJ's ready to fight him in December. We're up for it. Let's do it. I don't see any unsolvable objects that, if they really want it, should stop this fight. You have to remember what the issues were. That Anthony Joshua was ready to face Tyson Fury, but on December 17th, whereas Tyson Fury seems to want it in November or early December.
Not the 17th.
Frank Warren explained that the reason Tyson Fury does not want to fight Anthony Joshua on December 17th is because he hopes to face Alexander Usyk in February or March. Fury has set December 3rd as the latest date he wants to fight this year, but Tyson Fury is the same guy who, in his own words, sees more value in a Joshua fight than a Usyk fight. So how do you say that You can't fight him on the 17th.
Because you're prioritizing an Usyk fight. I thought you said you saw more value in a Joshua fight in England.
Now it's all about prioritizing Usyk. Which one is it? It really is more of the scatterbrained nonsense, contradictory.
Walking, talking contradiction that is Tyson Fury. If Fury himself says he sees more value in a Joshua fight,
then accept the 17th as the official fight date and hold his feet to the fire. Do what you've got to do to get him in the ring, even if that means fighting a little later than you want to, because according to you, this is the more important fight, the more valuable fight, but you're not behaving like it.
uploading a bunch of videos to your social media ain't gonna get the fight done.
Agreeing to face Anthony Joshua on the 17th as opposed to late November or early December, that would have did it. That would have been, could have been the ticket.
Yeah, if a fight is what you really wanted, but is a fight what you really wanted, or was it just to make a spectacle of things? Make a show?
Or was it a bit of both? With Tyson Fury, you never really know, because that guy's head is a bag of cash. Did Fury really want to get Anthony Joshua in the ring? Or did he want to make him look bad, and he didn't expect that he would accept a 60-40 split for a fight before this year is out? I mean, did Fury really want the fight, or did he just want to make the guy look bad? Is asking for a December 17th date so different from fighting earlier in the month?
The 17th was too much to ask.
You know, Frank Warren says he thinks they can sell 2 million pay-per-view buys with this thing. That's what he says. Tyson Fury, in his own words, says he sees more value in facing Joshua in England than facing Usyk.
If all of that were true, why didn't you do what you had to do to ensure that the fight happens?
Now, he may end up fighting someone else before this year is out, and according to Bob, they've already started talking to some other heavyweights out there that seem to be based out of Europe. Them being based out of Europe,
Egis Klimas based out of Germany. They were talking to that guy before.
his name almost immediately comes to mind. An unbeaten fighter that's been unbeaten for some time now, flying low on the radar, stick and move kind of fighter, good feet, good speed in those hands, not much pop though, not much power.
Though given that he's not the biggest heavyweight and he's somewhat athletic, somewhat light on his feet, he'd actually be good preparation for an Usyk fight.
But what does a fight between Tyson Fury and little-known Egis Klimas do at the box office? What's that going to bring you?
That's a legitimate question.
Does that sound like a hot ticket to you? What about Manuel Char? Is that a hot ticket?
It's all supposed to be preparation for an Usyk fight.
That still seems to be the plan for Tyson Fury as far as Bob Arum is concerned. Frank Warren as well.
According to them, that's how he's going to kick off next year.
He's going to kick it off with Usyk. And when it comes to Alexander Usyk, his manager, Egis Klimas, took to social media to react to Tyson Fury's call-outs of Anthony Joshua, and he stated, "This is an excellent way to run from Usyk, calling out others but not answering Usyk. Joke."
Wasn't it Alexander Usyk that stated he's got some injuries he's nursing and he wants to spend the rest of the year with his family?
Egis Klimas ain't the type to mince words by way of social media with anybody, really, but with Tyson Fury, he does seem to pay attention.
Yeah, he does take his time out to respond to Tyson Fury.
At least he did here, and he has at least once or twice in the past. Ultimately, Fury is more or less confirming what I told all of you, that the Usyk fight is a great fight, and it's an intriguing fight for a hardcore boxing fan.
It's for the undisputed heavyweight championship in the four-belt era. For the first time in the four-belt era.
For the first time since Lennox Lewis retired all those years ago. What's it been, over 20 years?
Yeah.
For the first time in a long time, the heavyweight division would see an undisputed champion crowned, and he would be the first undisputed champion of his kind in this division in the four-belt era.
There's a lot of history tied to this thing, but it doesn't seem to mean that much to Tyson Fury, and that's according to Tyson Fury, not
He
me.
places more value on a Joshua fight than a Usyk fight.
Says a Joshua fight is bigger in England than a Usyk fight. Remember when he said he wanted $500 million to come out of retirement?
Do you remember when he said that? And do you remember when he said that he doesn't care about all those belts and all of that stuff, all that legacy junk when it came to the Usyk fight? The Usyk fight, as far as Fury was concerned, was just about money.
That's what he said.
No, he's the same guy who said not that long ago he doesn't care about money.
He said that, and he also said that he'd fight Anthony Joshua in the United Kingdom free of charge.
Now what he's saying is he's the A side, 60-40 split, what have you.
So he does care about money.
When I think about how Tyson Fury's been occupying his time since having stopped Dillian White, his mandatory challenger, what the last couple of months have consisted of, and how Tyson Fury's been occupying his time, what he's been saying. He's retired, he's done.
He's retired, he's not retired, he wants to fight Derek Chisora.
He wants to fight Thor Bjornsson, but he drops the Ring Magazine title because he's retired, but he really dropped it because he wants to tie Muhammad Ali's record for having held the Ring Magazine belt 3 times if he wins it from Usyk.
And a Usyk fight that he places no value on because he feels the Joshua fight is bigger than the Usyk fight in England.
I mean, is this guy trying to break the record for the most contradictions ever uttered by a man?
People will tell you in a heartbeat that you can't take what Tyson Fury says at face value, no matter what it is.
When he says things like he needs $500 million to come out of retirement, what his fans will tell you is you can't take him seriously.
But I'm supposed to take all of this seriously.
Negotiations for a mega fight held in full view of the public eye. And you expect all of this to get sorted in approximately 3 days' time, 24-hour deadline, hardline stances on...
A hardline stance on the split, hardline stance on when and where the fight happens.
Behaving the way he's behaving, he expects all of this. He really expects all of this to get sorted in approximately 3 days' time. 2 rival promotional outfits that have more or less hated each other for as long as I can remember. 2 competing platforms, 2 separate competing platforms, foreign rights, broadcast rights.
It's all supposed to get sorted in 3 days.
They'll tell you. When Tyson Fury asks for $500 million to come out of retirement, you can't take him seriously. But I'm supposed to take all of this seriously.
Where do you guys draw the line with this guy's bullshit?
Goes back to what I told you before. Takes a certain level of cognitive dissonance to play along with Tyson Fury's shenanigans, his antics. It's like what you see in the WWE. Everybody knows it's scripted, everybody knows it's fake, but they still play along. The way they're playing along with this...
The way they're playing along with his latest fiasco.
The more I think about it, the more it reads like a baseless publicity stunt in order to keep the focus on him between fights.
Listen. If you really want to know what's going on here, focus on everything but Tyson Fury for a second.
Focus on what his options really are, his opponent options, without Alexander Usyk and without Anthony Joshua. What high-profile dance partners are left out there for him? You go in there with Emmanuel Char or an Egis Klimas, well, you can't get $40 or $50 million fighting people like that.
No matter what the reactions are to Tyson Fury's shenanigans online.
At the box office and at the gate, where it counts the most, where it matters the most, those are not $50 million fights.
They're not $50 million fights. They're not $41 million fights like his last fight with Dillian White.
A proven box office draw.
So do you think that Tyson Fury wants to go through the rigors of a camp for less than what he just made?
Less than what he made with Deontay Wilder. Less than what he made in his last fight with Dillian White. He might have to.
Because Fury versus Char, Fury versus Caballel, that's not a $41 million fight.
Doesn't matter what you say to Anthony Joshua online. It doesn't matter how many videos you upload to your social media. Those fights ain't box office.
Frank and Bob, they can't pay you for those guys what they just paid you for Dillian White.
They can't. They'll lose their money, and they're not in the business of losing money. In reality, nobody is. So they can't pay you for Emmanuel Char or an Egis Klimas, what you just made with a Dillian White.
When have you ever seen a true cash cow, an A-side fighter chase down a guy coming off of 2 losses with no belt?
I mean, why would a bona fide cash cow, a real A-side, a proven draw, why would he need a fighter coming off of 2 consecutive losses with no belt?
It's not something Oscar would do. It's not something Floyd would do or Canelo Alvarez.
And you know why? It's because those guys were proven draws. They were going to get big money regardless of who you put them in there with. Those guys, whereas Fury
ain't got the Midas touch. You don't put him in there with an Egis Klimas and get a $41 million fight.
Don't focus so much on what he says, but the surrounding environment and certain elements of the situation. This guy needs a tune-up fight because he doesn't want to let ring rust collect, but not every guy's going to get you $41 million pot.
Doesn't want to put himself through a rigorous camp for less money than he just made, but he might not have a choice, so he's desperate.
Best thing he can do in that situation is try to ride Anthony's wave. Anthony, who just lost 2 back-to-back fights consecutively. In order to compensate for the marquee value that he doesn't have, he has to turn to a boxer who just lost his last 2 fights. And Tyson Fury is a fighter who is promoted by 2 Hall of Fame promoters.
That's still not enough to make him everybody's sweetheart.
That's still not enough to give him the same kind of drawing power that Anthony Joshua has organically. The most that he can do is try to siphon off some marquee value from Anthony Joshua. In many ways, he's clout chasing a guy coming off of 2 losses.
It's all I see because there's no reason for a bona fide cash cow, a real draw.
Real box office guy. Don't matter who you put him in there with, it results in dollars.
Why would he be chasing around a guy with no belt who just lost his last 2 fights? It don't make no sense.
A content creator who actually profits from the content that he creates, like myself, might feel so inclined to analyze all of these situations.
Because I'm literally making money from it.
But those of you out there that actually feed into Tyson Fury's shenanigans and have entire arguments and discussions and debates based on things that he says, even though what he says,
It could literally change within the hour.
and for what? This guy's just wasting your time. Did you honestly believe that a fight of this scale, a fight of this size, could be negotiated in full view of the public eye within 3 days' time with a 24-hour deadline and a whole heap of hardline stances between 2 promoters that hate each other and 2 competing platforms?
Well, if you thought that, you were wasting your own time. And what Tyson Fury did,
He got your hopes up for nothing because you were willing to play along.
you didn't get anything out of it. Now, myself, I might have made a few dollars talking about it.
But you, what did you get? What did you get for believing him? What did you get for believing that a fight like this could be negotiated in 3 days' time? What did you get?
You got your hopes up and your time wasted. That's what you got.
So it seems too much of what Tyson Fury does gets forgiven behind the guise that he's just being a showman. He's just joshing. But these people pick and choose when they want to take him seriously when, near as I can tell, you can almost never take him seriously. And that also applies to this latest fiasco.
What, you can't take him seriously when he says he wants $500 million.
But you can take him seriously when he expects a fight like this to get negotiated in 3 days' time? What are you, a moron?
He's stringing you bozos along and he's getting ready to charge you to watch him tune up with some Joe Blow.
He just needed an excuse for when he charges you for it.
Go on, believe what you like.